Kevin Durant has just been traded to the Phoenix Suns in a trade that I think a lot of us didn't really expect to actually happen before the deadline, and somehow it happened. So let's break down this trade for both teams and Kevin Durant and what it means for the rest of the NBA. But if you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. It truly means the world to me. But let's not waste any more of your time. Let's go ahead and get right into things. As mentioned, Kevin Durant was traded from the Brooklyn Nets to the Phoenix Suns just days after the Nets had moved Kyrie Irving to the Dallas Mavericks. There is so much going on in the NBA and just so much to talk about, but I thought this was too important to be lumped into the big trade deadline video, so I had to make my own specific video about this exact topic. So let's break down the trade itself. I should have it behind me now. I don't think the trade is exactly final until midday today, but this is how it sits currently. The trade between the Suns and the Nets, the Suns receive Kevin Durant and TJ Warren. I think TJ Warren flies a little bit under, the radar, but honestly a pretty good addition alongside Kevin Durant to bring in. Although he hasn't shown a lot, he's on a cheap deal. He has kind of shown that he can play at a high level, but he's definitely not done it consistently. I mean, back in the bubble, he had a great year, putting up like a bunch of points on guys like even Jimmy Butler. So, that a decent bring-in for the Suns alongside Kevin Durant. And for the Nets, they received Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Jay Crowder, 2023 first, 2025 first, 2027 first, 2029 first, and a 2028 first-round pick swap between, of course, the Phoenix Suns and the Brooklyn Nets. That is a ton that the Nets got, and, I mean, this is kind of a fair trade, and that's something you don't hear a lot. And maybe I'm oversimplifying it and overlooking it. Yeah, it's a lot of first-round picks for a guy like Kevin Durant, but when you look at what the Suns needed and what they got, and same for the Nets, it's kind of close to a fair trade. Now, whether you want to look at it as you want to be immediate contender or what it means long-term for you, maybe you think about it a little bit different. But this trade came with, a lot of shock and surprise to many of us, but I think we all kind of expected a trade to happen, but I really didn't think it was going to happen now. I honestly was expecting, the offseason to be the move where something occurs between the Nets and Kevin Durant and all this stuff to happen. But let's break down what it means for both these teams, the Nets and the Suns, and then we're going to move into what it means for the entirety of the NBA. First, let's go ahead and talk about the Brooklyn Nets and what it means for them to move on from Kevin Durant and to bring in all these picks as well as the players. Now, the Nets, in just a few days, moved on from their starting point guard in Kyrie Irving and their starting small forward/power forward in Kevin Durant. Their big two that, are some extremely, extremely good players. Both these guys were averaging 27 and 29 points each. They were having great years, both starting all-stars, but it just wasn't working. Currently, the Nets sit at the 6th seed and are in a pretty decent spot. They're a little bit over, I think they're right around 10 games over 500. They're in a really good spot, but you move on from your big two. You bring in 5 new players. You bring in 5 new first-round picks as well as 2 second-round picks in that Kyrie Irving trade. There's a lot going for the Nets, and it seems like they're going to be moving back into kind of a rebuild phase, but at the same time, with how things are sitting, they don't really have a number one guy, but with how far above they are currently, they potentially could still find a way into the playoffs this year. Now, I don't really see them winning a series or maybe even making it past a play-in, but they have a shot right now. In realistic terms, I think they're not going to make playoffs. They might make the play-in on the back end, but I don't think they'll make it into the playoffs. But they put themselves in a really good spot. I mean, that's a ton of picks. You got some young guys on the team that are seemingly going to work out pretty well for you. I think that this could be a pretty quick turnaround. We could be talking 2-3 years for the Nets to completely rebuild. I mean, they were just in a rebuild, and then they brought in that big three, James Harden, Kyrie, Kevin Durant. I think they're going to do something similar, but not pay to bring somebody in, hopefully work through the draft. I think that's kind of a better way to do it. But, they got about 30 games left in the year. They're the 6th seed. They're in a pretty decent spot. They could sneak in. I could also see them falling out. The Nets in a pretty decent spot. I think I'm going to have a completely separate video on the Nets themselves. But let's move on to the Suns. And really, the Suns are in, a crazy scenario. It looks like kind of the photo's cut off right here. Not sure if I'll be able to get Kevin Durant in here. a little bit better. There you go. You can see his face a little bit. But the Suns absolutely became some real contenders with just this trade alone. I mean, you go from the Suns being in the championship just a couple years back, but couldn't complete it, losing against the Bucks, and just kind of being in this middle phase to, you know, being in a drastically different scenario now. They're the 5th seed, at this current moment, but the West is packed, and bringing a guy like Kevin Durant is enough to really make you a contender, and potentially through his last 30 games, last few months, they could jump to that 1 seed, I think. I wouldn't be too surprised if the Suns were able to pull something like that off with a really, really good core, and now you add Kevin Durant to that. You have a big 4 pretty much with Ayton, Booker, Paul, and KD. There's so much to add to this, and the Suns, who currently sit at the 21st ranked offense for points per game, you bring in a guy like Kevin Durant who's averaging 29.7 points per game on shooting of 56, 38, and 93. You could definitely see this Suns offense jump to top 10 with just the addition of Kevin Durant. But not only that, adding Kevin Durant and his scoring efficiency is going to help the rest of your guys. It's going to make it a little bit easier for them, not only in their shots, but allow them to focus on what they're really good at. Chris Paul can move back to that point guard that we all know that he can be. He's kind of, you know, seemingly regressed as his years have went on lately, but we know what he can be, and bringing a guy like Kevin Durant likely means that he can be more of a pass-heavy point guard with an ability to score once again. You have a guy in Devin Booker who is a phenomenal scorer. He can get that a little bit easier and have easier shots. People are going to have to go help down on Kevin Durant. He's going to be able to get some easy catch-and-shoot threes. I think Kevin Durant's scoring ability is going to help Devin Booker's scoring ability as well. Maybe both their numbers come down a little bit, but I think it's going to make shots easier and make their percentages go up at least. And DeAndre Ayton is going to be able to be at the block a little bit more if he so chooses to. I think that's how they're going to use him. Space the floor, have Ayton down the blocks. And he can be a little bit more of that defensive guy for you. He doesn't have to worry about helping so much because Kevin Durant is a lengthy guy, and although he's not excellent at defense, his length alone is enough to get him some steals and some blocks here and there. So I think this does so much for the Suns, and it 100% puts the Suns in a much better scenario. But what does it mean for the rest of the NBA? Of course, this is a huge acquisition for the Suns, and I think it should worry the NBA, at least a lot of people in the West. But what does it all mean? Now, this should 100% make the Nets contenders, but it doesn't make them the best team in all of NBA, at least not immediately. We have to see it on the court. I mean, we thought the same about the Nets when they had Harden, KD, and Kyrie. We thought that exact same thing, and they just weren't. They weren't the best team in all of the NBA. So although you have a big 4 arguably now, you can't just say that this is the best team without at least getting some portion of game film watched to fully understand what this is going to mean for the Suns and for the NBA. But the Suns are in a crowded West. And the West is just so good, and in such a good scenario, it's going to be really hard for them to take that 1 seed, but they're going to be fighting really hard no matter what seed they are once playoffs come around. I mean, you have the Nuggets, who don't seem to be slowing down at all, with Jokic, who once again is MVP candidate, and a really good roster built around him. I mean, Murray, Porter, a bunch of other guys. The Nuggets look really good. You also have the Grizzlies, who have been slowing down a little bit, but they have a great foundation. The Kings look great and was really unexpected out of nowhere with Fox and Sabonis. They look really good. And then your 4 seed right above the Suns is the Mavericks, who just traded for Kyrie Irving and got a lot better with Luka Doncic, another MVP candidate. So the West is very crowded, and that doesn't even talk about the remainder of, you know, everything, the rest of your team and all that stuff. But the Suns just have such a good roster. We're going to touch on their depth chart real quick here just to get a full graph. Yes, I covered the top 5, but I want to quickly cover their depth chart. And it's not amazing, but I think it's gonna work. You got, of course, Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, DeAndre Ayton. I think T.J. Warren's gonna be your starter. Saban Lee, Damian Lee, Torrey Craig, Dario Saric, and Jock Landale, and then Bismack Biyombo as your next backup. So not a phenomenal depth chart, but I think it's enough to compete in the West with some of these West teams that have really good starting five as well as a really good bench. I mean, the Clippers and the Golden State Warriors have some of the best benches in the league. I think the Suns can do enough to kind of keep up with all that's going on, but the Suns made a huge risk right here, but I think it's going to pay off for them, and I think that they're going to be contenders and put themselves in a really good spot. Now, how long it's going to last, I'm not sure. I think Ayton's contract's coming up. I think they only matched this year, but I might be wrong on that. So the Suns, their clock might be ticking a little bit faster. I mean, Chris Paul's getting older. Devin Booker is on, he's been great, but he's also getting older. Ayton's a young guy. You don't know how that contract's going to roll out. And then Kevin Durant, also an older guy. Their clock might be ticking a little bit faster than we all expect, but the West is packed. But what do you guys think about this trade? It was a massive blockbuster trade. Did you see this coming in? Did you expect him to go to the Suns? Do you think this makes the Suns the best team in all of the NBA? And will they win a championship with Kevin Durant on the roster? Comment all of that down below. If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. It truly means the world to me. But as always, I hope to touch something today. I hope it made you smile, hope it made you laugh. Something really important to me. Affects most day in a great way. And as always, you guys all be safe out there.